So now it's time for our keynote speaker. Very excited for this next speaker and for you to hear from him. Many of you are probably familiar with our next speaker and our next presenter, especially if you're a country music fan or maybe even if you're up with current events in Georgia Pre-K. For those of you not familiar with him, you'll be surprised that this Grammy award-winning guitarist with a Zac Brown band has authored several children's books. He also became one of DeCal's key partners in emphasizing the critical importance of early language and literacy. He wrote the book, Behind the Little Red Door, to help us celebrate the 25th birthday of Georgia's pre-K program. A copy of each book was given to over 80,000 children enrolled in Georgia pre-K that year. Coy Bowles is a husband, a dad, an author, and a musician who uses his public platform to advocate for children in Georgia. And we are privileged to have him here today as we celebrate our work. But before I turn the podium over to him, we have a video that will provide more insight into the heart and passion of this really cool and extraordinary man.
Telling a story is Coy's superpower. A hard worker, a super positive force.
Young and funny.
He doesn't want anybody to know it, but he does care.
When I grow up, I want to be Coy Bowles.
For real, describe Coy.
No.
What does Coy mean to you?
Coy he's an unbelievable storyteller.
So this is basically my spot where I would stand and watch everything. So music's playing, we'll just stand here and watch Mudcat, Donnie McCormick, Oliver Wood, Sean Costello, Zyda Funk, the Breeze Kings. Everybody was a big part of me being who I am right now as a musician.
I absolutely believe him playing at Northside Tavern definitely set him up. He does great on the stage.
That scene was such a just breeding ground. It was like, you need a scene like that to create music.
I'm probably the best musician you know. I'm great friends with Chris Hemsworth. I can tap dance.
Tender.
Loving, verbose, awesome, funny.
No competition.
Joy. Dude.
Real answer is I am a small town boy from Georgia, two amazing kind of hippie parents that I was raised by in Thomaston, Georgia. Started hanging out with the Zac Brown band guys, ended up becoming a part of the Zac Brown band. Learned a lot about life, and I have a wife and a lovely daughter, and I'm about to have another daughter any day now.
He grew up in a small town in Georgia. It may have been like a dream to get to this at some point, but did he ever really think it was going to happen? Probably not.
A huge influence on me creatively is this guy named Donnie McCormick, who was kind of like the godfather of Northside Tavern.
I feel the same way about Donnie that Coy does, I'm sure. He was sort of the unspoken father of that scene. He was just the epitome of cool, and he was also the epitome of like a real artist. Like, he didn't give a crap about anything but that moment that he was singing on stage.
I started hanging out with him for probably 5 years before he passed away. And he was an artist, a painter, a poet, a drummer, a singer. He just did everything. And so once I started hanging out with him, I decided that I want to be creative in all forms of my life. So I said, whatever opportunity that I think strikes next, I'm going to pursue it.
Like a doer. Like, he just has an idea and he does it. Apply that philanthropically like he does these days and write kids' books, and it's awesome.
He writes these stories that genuinely connect With children, that's the thing that people don't know about Coy, is he's just such a softie and such an incredible heart.
The idea of writing a book and giving it to somebody and using the success to kind of help kids out was where it all kind of came together and made sense for me.
I'm gonna live like tomorrow never comes.
I love Coy. As a friend, I'm very proud of him.
He is just the darnest coolest guy I've ever met in my life.
He's a talented musician.
He's just a lot of fun.
He has so much heart, very kind and very, very loving.
He is a very energetic, creative guy.
Coy is like one of my little brothers.
I think he's incredibly appreciative and thankful for all that he's been blessed with, for sure.
You only get one chance to live, and there's so many people that would do anything to be in my place, to be in a band that has this kind of success and gets to play at this level. And so to me, there's a little bit of a responsibility in maximize my impression on people in a positive way. Because I would hate to look back on my dying day or anything and go, wow, I was just kind of in a band, instead of being in a band and taking advantage of all the stuff that you could affect people with, you know? So I take it really seriously.
Please join me. You can't get much cooler than that. So please join me in welcoming Coy Bowles.
And a little bit of chicken fried, cold beer on a Friday night, a pair of jeans that fit just right, and the radio.
Check 1, 2. Thank you guys for having me. If I ever have a bad day, that's the video that I watch. So I got a call from Liz the other day and wanted to know if I wanted to come down and speak, and I was like, of course, I would love to. I feel like I owe Liz Young and Amy, Commissioner Jacobs, a lot. They introduced me to this early education world in the last couple of years with inviting me down. I guess it started with Mrs. Dill picking Will Powers, a book that I wrote, as the book that she was going to read to all the schools that year. So I went to the governor's mansion and I met Mrs. Dill, and she had some friends who were all from Gainesville, and I ended up taking a lot of pictures with her friends from Gainesville and figured out that she is what my relatives would call a hoot. She's a lot of fun and very energetic. And I learned a old school Georgia lesson. As I was leaving, she said, just so you know, we don't wear hats inside the governor's mansion, okay? So I'm in a band. I wear this hat everywhere I go. You know, I didn't think anything about it, but I thought it was so cool that she told me, like, on the way out that just next time, just remember, don't wear the hat, okay? So the next time I showed up, I had my hair all cleaned up and everything and no hat. So I learned my lesson. But it was such an honor to work with her. And I would go to schools and read Will Powers, which was the book that I had out at the time that she had chosen. And I found it really interesting to keep up with her. I mean, it was just like we were going through, like, I think 4 schools in one day or something. And I mean, we would do one school, and the next thing I know, she'd already be in the car, and I'd be like kind of lagging behind. And she's like, Coy, come on. And then we get to the next school, and then she'd already be in there with the book open, and I'd be like, oh my God, I got to keep up with this lady. So it was a lot of fun to work with her, and she was so spontaneous and energetic, and had such a deep passion for and commitment for the work ethic to put in to go to all of these schools and everything. And so that was kind of my first involvement in early education in the state of Georgia. And then I got invited to go down to the Capitol and talk about literacy. And a couple weeks later, or maybe a month or so later, Liz and Commissioner Jacobs called and said, we're thinking about doing this, getting a Georgia author to write a book for the 25th anniversary of the Georgia Lottery funding pre-K in the state of Georgia. And I was like, okay, this sounds great. I'm a Georgia author. You know, what is this all about? And she said, well, it's going to go out to like 80,000 kids. And so all I could picture from that moment on was me standing up on a stage like you saw before with like 80,000 preschoolers and me being like, if I could have your attention, please, if we could, kid, and stop, everybody put your hands in your pockets and listen, and okay, if we could just please, and for the first time in my life, I got like a creative brain block. I had never had that happen in my life before. And so I immediately had to stop envisioning myself controlling 80,000 kids in a giant field with me on stage. That was step number one. But I came up with this really cool idea called Behind the Little Red Door. And I, kind of threw the idea out to them, and it was so cool to work with them because they had a lot of trust in me as being the creator and a lot of trust in me moving the book along. And that's a really good feeling when you're working with somebody who kind of gives you an open lane to be creative. And so the book came out, and it went out to 80,000 plus kids, which is a big exposure to myself in the state of Georgia as an author. And kind of legitimize, that would be my fourth book that I've created, but it definitely kind of put me on the map as being an author in Georgia, particularly with that many books going out to students. So again, thank you guys so much for inviting me out today and for allowing me to create what I think is the best book that I've written so far, and what an honor for it to go out to so many students and be a part of so many people's lives. So since then, it's been a very interesting last couple years for me. I've really found that early education, creativity and literacy in the home and in the classroom, and also teacher appreciation is what my advocacies are now. I kind of had this Phoenix moment where all of these certain things came together to where, a lot of people in this video mentioned me being a storyteller. So I put together this idea of me being a storyteller with also me being comfortable with speaking with people, with also me taking the power that I had given to me, the voice that I'm allowed because of being in a successful band like the Zac Brown Band. And all of this stuff came together where what I want to do in my life outside of being in a band and being a father and a husband and a son is also to be an advocate for Georgia specifically, for, again, teacher appreciation. I think that I taught for a long time. I teach at Kennesaw State University and teach a music business class up there. And I taught guitar lessons for a very long time, which is very different than being an early education teacher. But I think it's really important that those teachers get the thank you that they need. And so I recently have been trying to come up with this idea of how do you thank somebody who has a somewhat thankless job? Well, you thank them. So I came up with this idea that I wanted to share with you guys today, and maybe we can all do it at some point. But if you could remember a teacher that you had in your life who had a profound effect on you, and you take a video of yourself and say, when I was in high school or when I was in third grade or when I was in preschool or whatever your experience was, I had a teacher who helped me in this way, and you videotape yourself saying that, and then you put it online, or you try to find a way to send it to that teacher, and at the end of it, you say thank you. And so this was something that I recently did with a teacher that I had in my senior year of high school. He looked at me, and it was Mr. Tom Sullivan. He looked at me and said, what are you gonna do when you get out of high school? And I said, I don't know, man. He was like, okay, well, I'm gonna ask you next week, and I want you to have an answer. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. So next week rolls around, he was like, what are you gonna do after you get out of high school? And I was like, I don't know, dude. I'm going to be out of high school, I guess, And he was like, well, why don't you do what you said you were going to do and have an answer for me, and I'm going to ask you next week. And so I was like, God, this guy's hounding me. And so I remember sitting in my car and being like, all right, I got to tell him what I'm going to do. And I was like, I guess I'm going to go to college. My mom really wants me to go to college. I'm sure I'm going to go to college. So that's my answer. But this part of my brain lit up that had never really lit up before, in the fact that my mother and father had always been very supportive of me, and I'd had friends who have been supportive of me, but I'd never had somebody outside of my immediate circle care about me and interested in what I was going to do with my life. And this part of my brain kind of lit up, and I realized, like, wow, this guy really cares enough about me to kind of badger me with this question. And then I came back to him that next week, and before he could ask me, I said, I'm going to go to college. And he goes, what for? And I was like, oh my God. All right, I'll get back to you. And so I started thinking about it, but it caused that part to light up even more, where, like, what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to be? Who do I want to be? All of these important ideas started kind of coming up. And so I came back to him and I said, I think I'm going to go to school for history. My history teacher, my senior year of high school, was this amazing teacher. And I was like, I would love to be able to do what that guy does, to teach kids in this amazing way, and he just happened to be a history teacher, so I wanted to kind of be like him. And he was like, okay, cool. And he looked at me and he goes, you need to do something in your life. You don't belong in this town like everybody else. And I remember, hearing that, and kind of almost chokes me up to think about it, but somebody believing in me, because I came from a really small town. This is a very beautiful small town, and I have my parents were raised there, my grandparents were raised there, but he saw something in me that I couldn't see yet and wanted me to go out and be somebody. And I think back on that, on every step that every chance that I took on myself, and every time I kind of jumped this giant leap, something had to do with him believing in me. So one of the things that I wanted to, since the theme of this event is like superpowers, if you will, I wanted to talk with you guys a little bit about the superpower that we kind of all have. And one of those things is telling somebody that you're thankful for what they do, even if it's your coworker or if it's your son or your family member or somebody in your community. One of the most powerful things that my dad has is, and it's kind of where I started the Behind the Little Red Door book, the idea of that book came from, is that my dad tells me every single time he gets off the phone with me that he's proud of me. And it could be like, hey man, I just messed my back up, which happened this week. And he would be like, I'm proud of you. Great job. Or I could say, man, we just won a Grammy. And he's like, I'm proud of you, man. You're doing a great job. But I hear that so much that it almost kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But I definitely, when he forgets, every once in a while, I'll call him back and I'm like, you forgot something. He's like, oh yeah, I'm proud of you, So, but I was raised in this way. And I think that there's kind of like a certain superpower to being able to tell somebody when they're doing a great job. So if my dad has somebody that comes over and he's tried to fix the lawnmower and he can't do it, and he calls his buddy who's, kind of works in that area, and the guy comes over and fixes the lawnmower, my dad would say afterwards, man, I really appreciate you coming over. You did a great job. Thank you for that. And that person, from a small kid, just watching that person kind of be grateful for being appreciated, and it's just a small idea of telling somebody thank you. So what I want to do is get people in this mode of remembering to tell themselves, to tell other people that they're thankful for what they do, even if it's small stuff. I just think in the day and age that we live in that we could use a lot more of that. And that's kind of like every one of ours God-given superpower that we're given, is the ability to look at somebody else and tell them that you're thankful for what that they've done for you, even no matter how small it is. Like the other day I was in the Atlanta airport, and this old man was walking, which I'm in the airport quite often, and this old man was walking, and he had toilet paper on both of his shoes. And I was like, I tapped him on the shoulder. I was like, bud, I'm sorry, but I can't let you walk around like this, man. So I reached down and got both of the toilet paper off of his shoes or whatever, and I just kind of brushed them off to the side with my foot. And then the guy who was cleaning the bathroom said, you could put it in the trash can if you wanted to. And I was like, ooh, okay. All right. We got a little comeback, you know? I was like, all right. And then he said, because you got some on your shoe too. And I looked down, and I had toilet paper on my shoe too. And I was just like, there was nobody around, but I felt like the entire world was looking down. I was like, busted, you know? So I grabbed the toilet paper, and I brushed it off to the side, and I walked out of the bathroom, and I was, kind of slightly embarrassed. I felt like I had done a good thing for this older gentleman, but I also kind of not done the right thing in this situation for this guy. So I got about halfway out, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go back in there. So I went back in there, and I grabbed the toilet paper off the floor, and I put it in the trash can, and I looked at the guy, and I said, I appreciate you calling me out. I appreciate what you do for this bathroom, because if it weren't for people like you, it wouldn't be as clean as it is. And I handed him a little bit of cash just to let him know that I appreciate him, and I walked out of the room. But it's just simple stuff like that that can really go a long way, because I'm not sure if that guy has too many people telling him thank you for doing his job, you know? So one of the things that I wanted you guys to kind of keep in mind, so like in my experience, I have people come up to me, you know, you saw in these videos, we play in front of 20,000, 40,000, 60,000 people. I mean, we just did 2 sold-out nights at Fenway. And when you walk out on the stage and there's like 45,000 people in one night, and the whole sky is filled with just little tiny heads everywhere, and then it gets to where you can see the person's face right here, it's just so overwhelming and such an amazing experience, and I'm so blessed to be able to do that. But it's also kind of impossible for me to fully fathom what their experience is like, what their connection to the music is like, what their connection to me personally is like, what their connection to the band is like. And then I'll have people who'll share those experiences either after the show, or they'll write me on Facebook and they'll say, you know, hey, I just want to let you know that my father has been going through chemo treatment, and a song that you guys wrote has been a song that's really kind of united our family, and we've circled around this song, and it's kind of become this song of hope. And you know, and it just washes over me, and like, what a cool thing. I mean, it's such a bad scenario, but what a cool thing for somebody to share that with me, but also to have the ability to affect people in a positive way like that. So music has this profound effect to be able to make us transcend time and space. And it can, you know, you can listen to a song and you can remember being a kid. You can listen to a song and you can remember the way your grandmother smelled, or the way her house smelled. I mean, there's certain Willie Nelson songs that come on. You saw this little guitar that I have when I was a kid, that when Willie Nelson plays, it was my connection to my grandparents through music. And I can remember green beans cooking in the kitchen when I hear On the Road Again from my grandmother, because that was like the only song that she would sing to me that she knew that I knew, because all she listened to was like gospel music, you know? And she liked Willie Nelson for some reason, I don't know why, but she thought he was a good guy, which I guess he is, you know? But you know, it can transcend time and space, and so it's kind of really impossible for me to walk around every single day and really fathom how much effect that the music that I create with this band of people that I love and have so much admiration for, how much power that truly has and transcends. And so it's easy for me to forget, and I get caught up into, you know, the travel stuff. I get caught up in, you know, am I a good enough father? You know, am I a good enough husband? Am I doing enough? Am I, you know, what's the next book am I going to create? And I get kind of caught in my own head. And then every once in a while, somebody shares a story with you of how they're thankful for something that you created, or they're appreciative or whatnot, and it kind of pulls you back into why you started doing this stuff in the first place. You know, I'm sure everybody in this room has one of those stories of why you're in this industry and why you chose to be here in this room, and the power that you have, and how much effect that the job that you do is either a big part or a small part in this giant machine that causes kids to get educated, which is such a profound and powerful thing, to be in this one room with all these collective people who do such an amazing thing for the early education and the youth that we have. So what I would like to encourage you guys to do is to try to remember like why you started and what got you inspired in the first place. And also remember like these kids that are going out and they're getting the books that, like the book that I did, and all the jobs that you guys do are creating this environment for these kids to be able to be educated. And then their lives are going to be affected by teachers along the way. And then they're going to be the next people who have a profound effect on what the world is like and making it a better place. And so if you know somebody in the room who's doing a great job, please tell them thank you, because that's your superpower that you were born with. And if you have something that you're doing and you forget why you're doing it, take a chance and remember at the profound effect that you're having on each of these students, and that the job that you have is affecting all of these kids in such a positive way. So I just wanted to take a little bit of time to kind of share my life with you, and also share what we all have, our own God-given superpowers, is to be able to be appreciative of what we have and also to be appreciative of other people. So thank you so much for taking time to have me up here today. And what an honor. I can't thank you guys enough. Thank you very much.